Hello and welcome back to Autistic After Hours. I'm your host Ashra, and today we are going to talk about why I chose to get a professional autism diagnosis as an adult. And greetings if you're watching me here on YouTube. Today's actually the first time that I'm recording the video in addition to the audio for my podcast. So if you ever want to actually see or watch me speaking while I'm recording the podcast, you can do that over on YouTube at Ashra Louisa. Also be sure to follow my podcast account on Instagram at Autistic After Hours, so that you can be a part of voting for new topics every single Monday, and so that you can see all of my original content on there. I want to preface this episode by saying that this is a highly subjective decision, something that you have to think about for yourself, and no one can really make the decision for you when it comes to figuring out if a professional evaluation or seeking out a professional diagnosis is the right move for you. I am going to talk about my own experience with this, but that does not mean it's the same as yours. You may want to seek a diagnosis for different reasons than me, or you may not want to seek a diagnosis for different reasons, and that's totally valid and dependent on your life situation and your life circumstances. I get so many messages on Instagram asking for my advice on whether someone should get diagnosed. People reach out to me and ask why I got diagnosed and if it was worth it. And so this episode is going to delve into why I got diagnosed, do I think it was worth it, and how it changed my life. In order to talk about this, I do need to rewind and talk a bit about my life. Growing up, I always felt different. I always felt weird. I always felt like the odd one out, and I never understood why. I remember truly thinking that I knew there was something different about me and that I didn't know what the answer was. I couldn't figure it out, but I knew that I would find out eventually. I had that understanding that at some point in my life, I would probably understand why I had these feelings, but at the time I didn't know. I made it almost like a quest of mine to get the answer, to figure it out, because my whole life felt like this exploration of trying to figure out why I felt so disconnected from other people, and also at times really from myself. This wasn't just something that I started realizing in my adulthood. It's something that I felt forever, this feeling of wanting an answer. I didn't just go through my youth and my teens feeling different. I went through it feeling different and wanting to know why. There was always this added element of wanting to know why, so badly wanting to understand myself. Seeking out an autism diagnosis was not just a means to understanding why I felt weird, but it was a means to answering this question that I've had for so long about myself, this fundamental question of who I am at my core, understanding my neurotype. So it was so much to me to have an opportunity to find an answer to why I felt the way that I did. I spent a really long time throughout my life examining other people, examining myself, becoming so painfully self-reflective out of this desire to answer this lifelong question of, why do I feel so different? And it led to such a depth of introspection that at times I felt like I didn't even actually exist. It often led to these feelings of depersonalization, feeling like I'm not real, or derealization, feeling like my world around me wasn't real, because of how introspective I became. And I think it further distanced me from other people, this desire to understand myself, because it made me so narrative of my own experience. I felt like an outsider in my own life because it was this constant struggle of trying to answer that question. Why do I feel so different? And it led to this intense observance of others and myself in every single context, in every situation. And so I never felt present because I was always removed, trying to observe, trying to narrate the experience rather than actually being a part of it. Seeking out an autism evaluation and diagnosis for me was not simply just to understand if I'm autistic, but it was to answer this question that I felt I needed to have an answer for in order to continue living my life. I felt like my life was on pause until I could answer this question. I felt like an outsider in my own life until I could answer this question. I felt like I was not present in my own life until I could answer this question. And so it wasn't a matter of, am I autistic or not? It was a matter of, can I answer this question so that I can continue living my life? And if not, I'm just going to continue trying to find the answer. I will continue searching for the answer and feeling removed. I felt like I couldn't be an active participant in my own life until I could find this answer. And so it was really a question of, how am I going to continue living my life if I don't figure this out? That's how desperate I felt for an answer. I do think that this experience is probably something that you don't understand unless you've gone through it yourself. This feeling of feeling removed from your own life, or feeling like an outsider, feeling like everything is so meta, everything is you just narrating the experience rather than actually being a part of it. But I felt that way because I felt like I couldn't exist peacefully. I couldn't exist without understanding the answer to this question. It was almost like, and I'm not saying this is right, but it was almost like I felt like I didn't have permission to behave as myself until I understood why I was behaving that way. It's honestly I feel like it's so autistic coded of me to have become so self-observant, so obsessive over finding this answer, of having to have the explanation before I could actually have permission or give myself permission to behave like myself. Because it's like in my life, I never was able to just accept things as they were, even with little things like my boyfriend telling me that it's better to defrost meat in a bowl of water rather than just putting it in the sink and letting it sit out in the air. I couldn't do it until I understood why. It's like that same feeling translated into my own life. I couldn't be me until I understood why I was the way I was. So it wasn't just like, oh, am I autistic? It was like, oh, am I gonna ever be me if I don't have the answer? Am I ever going to feel like I can be me if I don't find the answer? It was a matter of life, or meta life. Am I gonna keep going through this life feeling removed? Or am I gonna finally find out why I feel this way so I can give myself permission to be who I am? And again, I feel like you're not going to get this unless you get it, unless you've been through it. You might not get it. This feeling of needing permission, needing an explanation to give you the permission that you need in order to be yourself. That's how the autism diagnosis felt for me. It felt like it gave me permission. All the power to you if you don't need that permission. I don't know why I needed it, but I did. And I felt like I didn't have the ability to be myself until I understood why I was the way I was. I needed an explanation. Getting the autism evaluation and the diagnosis gave me that. So I needed the diagnosis because without it, I felt like I was just performing rather than actually existing or living. I felt like I needed the explanation in order to live my life as myself. I felt desperate. I felt really desperate. I put so much weight into this diagnosis. I was honest with the assessor too. I told the assessor how nervous I was because if I didn't get the diagnosis, I would have just been brought back to square one. And this wasn't meant to persuade the assessor in any way, and it absolutely would not persuade the assessor because any validated assessor would not give you a diagnosis for that reason. You have to actually meet the criteria, of course. But I told the assessor how desperate I was and how nervous I was because I felt like I had done so much work to self-diagnose, and I felt like I finally was on the cusp of understanding myself, that if I didn't get the diagnosis, it would just send me all the way back to having to start again. I got my master's degree and my bachelor's degree in psychology, and it was all an effort to understand myself. I observed humans, all an effort to understand myself. I became a narrator of my own existence, all in an effort to understand myself, and I self-diagnosed autistic. That didn't feel like enough for me, so I needed the professional assessment. I just felt like my self-diagnosis felt so real and so valid, but I felt like other people wouldn't believe me, or I felt like I didn't have enough strength to trust myself, even though I knew it was right. But I felt such a lack of trust in myself that had been instilled into me through years of having to mask and being undiagnosed is what caused this distrust. I felt like I needed a professional to validate me. I just want to say here quickly that if you are self-diagnosed, you are 100% valid and welcome into this community. If you did a proper self-diagnosis, you don't need a professional diagnosis in order to be a part of this community, but I personally felt like I needed one in order to trust myself and validate the work that I had done. So it was this conglomeration of so many things, of wanting to get rid of imposter syndrome, wanting to be able to trust myself, wanting an explanation, and wanting permission to feel like I could finally live my life. And all of this is why I sought out the professional assessment. Was it worth it? With every single fiber of my being, yes, it was worth it. It was the most significant moment of my life. It was the most important, impactful, life-changing experience that I've ever had. It completely changed the course of my life. I'm here recording this podcast for you because I got that diagnosis. I'm on Instagram making my content because I got that diagnosis. I feel like I have permission to advocate for myself and to live as I am and to continue my journey of unmasking, of finding what's right for me in this world because of my diagnosis. And you may be able to do all of those things with a self-diagnosis. You are welcome to do all of those things with a self-diagnosis, but I personally felt like I needed the professional confirmation to give me permission to live my life, to do the things that I wanted to do, and to be who I am. I didn't have the confidence before. I didn't have the confidence in my self-diagnosis to grant me permission to be myself, but the professional confirmation, it gave me that confidence, and it changed my life, completely changed my life. I'm so immensely grateful that I was able to get the professional confirmation and to get a really in-depth assessment. My assessment was very fastidious, and I appreciated that. But in the context of my own life, I feel like my diagnosis gave me permission to explore who I really am and to outwardly be that person. And without it, I worry that maybe I would have never done that. Maybe I would have kept living this fake feeling life. Maybe I would have continued feeling like a puppet or like a performer. I sometimes think about where I would be now without the diagnosis. What would I be doing? And I don't know. If I'd never found out that I was autistic, I don't know where I'd be, what I'd be doing. If I never found out I was autistic, I don't think I would have been able to continue on. I think it would have become too much, and I would have given up. I maybe wouldn't have been around for a long time. My autism diagnosis saved my life. I believe that. And so if you ask somebody, why would you label yourself? Why did you seek out the diagnosis? Maybe it's because it saved their life. And I think a lot of people don't understand that. But that's how it felt for me. And if you were in a similar place mentally, then you probably get it. That having that answer, just knowing, it changed everything for me. And so if you're wondering why I got diagnosed, that's why. That's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you for watching if you are. I appreciate you being here so much, and please always remember that autistic adults exist. We deserve awareness, support, community, and acceptance, and I'm so grateful that you're here. I'll talk to you again very soon. Bye.